All right, hello everyone. It's 3 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started here. First off, I want to say welcome and congratulations. We're so excited that you all are going to be joining us this fall at the College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences at the University of Vermont. My name is Michael Rose. I'm one of the professional academic advisors for the College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences. So a little bit about this session today. We invite questions into the chat feature. One of my colleagues, Emma Squire, is here and she's monitoring the chat. So she'll be able to respond and answer any questions that you have as we're going through the presentation. We'll also have some time set aside at the end as a question and answer. So we will also pause occasionally to answer any questions that do come up, and a recording will be available later with captions in case you miss anything. So diving in, as I said, I work in the Office of Student Services. So what is Student Services? We make up the advising and career support for the College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences. So students in their first year are paired with a professional academic advisor, and we help with that adjustment to life as a college student here at UVM. So we're here to answer any questions that you have about AP credits, transfer credits. We'll also work with you about academic success strategies, or what do you do if you're sick and you need to miss class? We also have a dedicated career readiness coordinator that just exclusively works with students within our college. So a little bit about the agenda today, some things that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about FERPA, our academic programs, a little bit about student services, the math placement assessment, computer logistics, and then some next steps. So before we get started, I just want to touch on FERPA, which is actually, it's a law that our office needs to follow. It's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So we follow it pretty strictly, and individual student records, including grades, academic progress, and course schedules, are considered private and confidential. So that means that we can only release that information directly to the student. Now, if you want someone else to have access to that information, there is a form that you can fill out with our office to essentially release. So if you wanted your parents to be able to chat with us so we can have conversations about what grades you've been getting and things like that, or just as general support. So parents, any caregivers, family, friends, you can designate anybody to have access to your confidential student record, but you need to indicate that with us first. Also important to note that you can revoke that access at any point if you would like. So it's just a form that you would fill out. You can indicate specifically what information you would like us to be able to share with that party. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to get that paperwork started for you. So within the College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences, we follow an interdisciplinary approach. So we offer courses and degrees in all of the fields that you can see here. And our curriculum is very interdisciplinary, meaning that regardless of your choice of degree, you'll take foundational classes in each of these subjects. So for instance, if you're an engineering student, you're going to have to take some foundational courses in computer science. And of course, you're going to need to take some courses in mathematics and statistics, because all of our students are required to do a bunch of math classes. Same thing, if you're a math or CS student, you'll also have the option to take engineering or any advanced courses in any of the other disciplines that you would like to explore. So a little bit about the programs that we offer within our college. So you should see the major that you're interested in studying at UVM up on this screen right now. So, you know, we have a lot of students that come in and they think, right, they might know they want to do this specific major, right? They might come in and say, I know that I want to be a mechanical engineer. And then maybe in your CEMS 1500, your CEMS first year seminar class that you take, you get to hear from electrical engineering and you're actually like, maybe that is actually what I'm more interested in. Or maybe you really like your computer science class that you take in your first semester. It's not uncommon for our students to switch their major at any point during their college career. So for some students, that's after the first semester. Other students, it's totally not uncommon for students to switch after the first year. And the good news is that realistically for pretty much all of our programs, especially within engineering, that first year is pretty standardized. So your choice of major functionally does not matter a whole lot in that first year because all of our students are taking the same classes, right? Like you need to take Calc 1 and Calc 2 and Intro Computer Programming and Chemistry. All students take those classes anyway. So you have realistically that whole first year to explore what majors are out there and what's possible. And as I said, it's totally normal and common for our students to consider switching their major. You can switch your major at any point during your time at UVM, and that's true within our college and within other colleges at UVM. It just becomes, after that first year, it might be a little trickier to finish a major within, a traditional 4-year time frame, if that's what you're looking at, but it's totally possible to switch your major at any point. Below here, you'll also see all of the minors that we have available to students within our college. So students, if you'd like, you can pursue a minor in our college. You also have the option to pursue minors outside of our college. So if you wanted to get a minor in English or philosophy or dance, those are all available to you as well. You don't need to minor with something in our college. And minors are a great way to expand the courses that you're taking, especially if you have some varied interests and things. So as I said, student services, in short, we are the academic and personal support for students. Our kind of motto that we like to say is if you have a question, if you need help and you don't know where to go, student services is a great first stop. So we might not be the right people to help you in the moment, but it is my job and everyone else in my office's job to know the resources that are across campus that we can help get you connected to. So you might come in and say that you've been having a difficult time with the adjustment from living at home to now living on a college campus and making friends and putting yourself out there. We can help get you connected with the counseling center on campus, and we know how to set up appointments with them. So we can walk you through that process. Or you might have academic accommodations that you've had set up throughout your education so far. And how do you implement those now that you're at a university? We can get you connected with student accessibility services. If you're struggling in your Calc 1 class, we can help get you set up with the tutoring center on campus. So for instance, the tutoring center offers 1 hour of tutoring per week per class for each student. So in any given week, you could go for an hour of tutoring in Calc 1, and that same week you can also go for an hour of one-on-one tutoring in chemistry if you needed some additional support there. You can see those are some of the other things that our office does on the side there. Again, if you remember nothing from today, just remember that if you have any questions, CEMS Student Services is the right place to go, and we can either help you in the moment or we can point you to the right office on campus to get that support. So a little bit about academic success and that advising relationship. So as I said, I'm one of the professional academic advisors for the College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences, meaning that I only work with students within our college, CEMS for short, so I don't have to keep saying College of Engineering and Mathematical Sciences. So primarily our office, we work with first-year students. So in your first year, you're assigned to one of us, one of the 4 academic advisors that we have, and we're there to help guide you through that transition, as I said, right? So that might just be adjusting to a college workload or some of those other adjustments that are going to come up inevitably throughout that first year, as they always do for students in college. We're there to help guide and advise you through that adjustment period, as well as, we also make sure that you're on track with your degree requirements and that. But we try to take a very holistic approach to our advising within our office, recognizing that students are not just students. There's also your multifaceted people. So there are a lot of other contributing factors and things that are going on in your life, and that you're not just a student. So we try to take a holistic approach. I always like building those strong advising relationships with students, because I think that that's when you can really start to get to the heart of advising and start talking about those long-term goals and what do you really want to get out of your time in school and what's your hope for the job that you want to get after you graduate. So as I said, you'll be assigned to one of us ahead of your fall semester. And actually, we'll talk about it a little bit later in this, but starting next week, we're going to do our summer advising meetings. And the advisor that you meet with during those meetings is going to be your primary academic advisor throughout your first year. So moving forward, any questions that you have, you can direct that to your assigned academic advisor. You should meet with your advisor regularly. The minimum is at least once per semester for course registration. So we need to connect with you to make sure that you're making good academic progress and that you're signing up for the right classes for the next semester. But as I said, if you really wanted to take advantage of that advising relationship, you can meet with us realistically as often as you'd like. And we can really dive into some of the other things that you might be considering. So you're with us for your first year, but we serve all students in the college. So after your first year, you'll get a faculty advisor. So a professor within your given department will become your primary academic advisor. So if you're a biomedical engineering student, you get a biomedical engineering professor as your primary advisor. If you were a CS student, computer science, you'd get a computer science professor. We find that that model works really well because in your first year, you have a lot of those general adjusting to college life questions. I always view it as like, we teach you the ropes in student services throughout your first year, right? How do you navigate the online registration system? And how do you reach out to professors when you need support in class? And then once you've learned the ropes, then you get paired with a faculty advisor. And then from there, they're really able to answer a lot of the more specific questions that you'd have regarding your major, right? So if you're a mechanical engineering student and you are really interested in aerospace engineering, your faculty advisor is going to be much more equipped than our office is going to be to tell you, here are the list of classes that you should take in your junior and senior year to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success if you wanted to go down the route of aerospace engineering. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach. So student services, as I said, we don't go away. So you might still come in and chat with us, like if you wanted to study abroad. Emma Squire, who's on this call, and Sharon Zelli, there are two advisors in our office that work with students in studying abroad. You would meet with them to make that happen, or if you wanted to do a course substitution for one of your requirements in your degree, you would come in and meet with us. So it's that double layered support that you get once you get that faculty advisor. Again, they will be good for a lot of the specifics that you have about your major and the industry that you would be going into. A little bit about our academic standards. So the minimum semester and cumulative GPA for good academic standing within our college is a 2.0. It's important to note that some of you might have financial aid or scholarships that have different standards than that. So your scholarship might be a 3.0 that you need to maintain to keep that scholarship. So good academic standing in the eyes of our college is a 2.0 semester and cumulative, but financial aid and scholarships might have different requirements than that you need to meet. We do a process called academic standing at the end of each semester. And so let's say your first semester, you get a GPA that's below a 2.0. At that point, you would be placed on what's called academic trial, which it's not punitive, it's meant as an additional outreach for support. So what that essentially means is you'll be connected with more resources. Our office is obviously notified of that and we'll work with you and we check in with you throughout the whole next semester. But in that next semester, you need to get your semester and cumulative GPA back up above a 2.0. Otherwise, you will be dismissed for low scholarship. And what that means is when students are dismissed, they need to take a break from the university for a full academic year, and then they are eligible to return after that. Students do have the option to appeal a dismissal, and we always encourage students to appeal dismissals. And then those appeals are reviewed by what's called the studies committee, and they make the determination. So they take a look at your transcript. They also read what you write in the appeal to see if there are extenuating circumstances that contributed to your academic performance. But that 2.0 semester and cumulative GPA is an important benchmark to hit to make sure that you're in good academic standing. So just as a reminder, if you drop below that 2.0, you're placed on academic trial. If you have 2 semester GPAs below a 2.0, then you're eligible and dismissed for low scholarship, or 3 semesters with a cumulative GPA below a 2.0. And as always, our office is there. So if you start to feel like, hey, yeah, my first exam in calculus didn't go so well, and I'm a little bit worried about this quiz coming up, it is always good to be proactive about these things, because that's one of the things that's different from being a high school student as a college student. So as a college student, the accountability is on you. So we have a system called academic alerts where your professors can notify your advisor and you that, you know, there might be some challenges in the class, but you really need to be the one that's advocating for your best interests, because nobody, you know, you're going to be the one that's looking out for yourself. So if you start to notice, even if you're like, I think I've got this, but maybe it might be good to talk to someone, come into student services and talk to us, because if you talk to us early on, there are more things that we can do to help essentially protect you from maybe dipping below that 2.0 threshold that you would need for the GPA. So again, questions and you don't know where to go and you need support, come into student services. We're always happy to chat through anything that we can do to support you. Let's talk about academic honors. So there's the Dean's List, which is released each semester. So it's awarded to full-time undergraduate students with a cumulative GPA of not less than a 3.0 who stood in the top 20% of each class of their college or school during the preceding semester. And then graduating with honors, that happens when you graduate. So once you've completed your time here at UVM, Latin honors are awarded to the top 25% of the class as follows. Students in the top 5% will receive summa cum laude, the following 10% will receive magna cum laude, and then the next 10% will receive cum laude. I always tell students there are a bunch of opportunities that are available to you throughout your time in CEMS and UVM, and it's best to take advantage of as many of those opportunities as possible. So you can get involved in research as early as your first year. So you can do that a few different ways. There are summer research opportunities that you can do after the summer of your first year. You can do them during a semester, and you can do those for credit, or you can do those for pay. We also, as I said, have a career readiness program. So I touched on it a little bit earlier, but in our office, we have a dedicated career readiness coordinator that just exclusively works with students in our college. So you can meet with her at any point. You don't need to just wait until your final semester here to meet with her. She has conversations with students at every step along the way. So your first semester, that might look like, hey, you know, I'm a civil engineering major. What kind of jobs do students get after they graduate? And what does the job market look like in Vermont for those types of companies? And then after your sophomore year, it might be, hey, I'm looking to find an internship back home over the summer. And then as you get later and later on, it might be like, okay, it's time to build a resume and cover letter. So she'll help you with writing a resume and cover letter. She'll do mock interviews with you. We have STEM networking nights where employers come to campus and you can network with them. We have employer resume review nights where you can submit your resume to the employers that would be reading your job application, and they can give you direct feedback on what your resume looks like. Another opportunity that students have available to them is to study abroad. And sometimes there's this misconception that it is impossible to study abroad as a STEM major. I know that's what I heard when I was in school. I was a physics major and I was told that it was impossible to study abroad. That's not the case whatsoever. It just requires a further degree of planning than, say, some of the other colleges at the university. As I touched on earlier, Emma Squire and Ann Chiarenzelli from our office, there are study abroad advisors that we have in CEMS, so they can chat through what that would look like for you. So essentially, each of our majors has a target semester that is the easiest semester to study abroad, meaning that the credits transfer over nicely. So they can advise you on what that is, any adjustments that you might need to make to your curriculum plan, and go through that individualized process with you to make that study abroad opportunity possible if you'd like to consider that. Other ways to get involved, we have over 20 CEMS related clubs and organizations. This next one has a list of some of those clubs. It's also important to note, you can get involved with clubs and organizations within our college, but if you wanted to branch out and you had other interests across the university, you wanted to join a club for fun, you could do that as well. There are hundreds of clubs across the whole university. These are just the ones that we have specific within our college. Touching on math a bit here, so you all will be required to take the math placement assessment. You should have received information about that already. It's an exam that you take online, and to place into Calculus 1 for your first semester, you need to score a 76 or higher on that placement exam. If you get below a 76, we would recommend that you take pre-calculus first. It is graded, but it's not graded towards your transcript. It's just a gauge to understand what is your comfortability level with math and calculus. So it's to make sure that you're prepared for the class that you would be taking in the fall semester. If you score below a 76, you have a couple options. You can take the math placement assessment multiple times. So if you take it, you get below a 76, but you're close, you could do a little bit more studying. There's actual modules that are built into the exam that you can take on areas that you might need a little reinforcement. And then you would be able to take the exam again. Or if you wanted to, you can also just take pre-calculus over the summer. And you can do that through UVM, or you can do that through a local institution closer to you. So if you have a community college or something, you can take pre-calculus through that school to transfer the credit back to UVM to be eligible to take Calc 1 in the fall semester. If you went that route, taking the class somewhere else, you'd want to check in with our office first to make sure that the class that you're taking is actually going to transfer into UVM correctly to cover our pre-calculus requirement. Another important thing to note is, so as I said, we're going to be kicking off our advising meetings next week. And we do a process that's called block scheduling. So essentially we build a schedule for you. So each of our programs are fairly rigidly defined. So essentially there's a set list of classes that realistically you just need to be in that first semester. And we place you into those classes. So you do still need to take the math placement assessment, because if you don't, you'll be removed from that calculus class. So please take that math placement assessment as soon as possible. Ideally, you would want to have it done ahead of your advising appointment that you're going to have over the next couple of weeks with us, just to make sure that everything's good on that front. While we're chatting about this, I know a big thing. So some of you might have AP or transfer credit. I know we see a lot of Calc 1 is one of the classes that we see the most often with AP credit. So we actually don't receive those scores until usually August. So what we recommend is we'll keep you in Calc 1 for now, and then we actually do another round of outreach once we receive all of your AP scores, and then we'll make schedule adjustments at that point. So if you have credit for Calc 1 and you feel comfortable going into Calc 2, we can get you into Calc 2 at that point. Or if you have some general education classes that are going to be fulfilled through your AP courses, we can make those adjustments later down the road as well. So as I said, you do have some options if you wanted to do pre-calc online through UVM or through a local community college. Check with us to verify that it's going to count. And then I was just talking about the AP credit as well. So again, I know some students ahead of that advising meeting, it's great to mention to us that, hey, I'm expecting some AP credits and here's what I'm expecting to get. But we're going to say hold tight, hang on until August, and then that's when we'll make the adjustments just to make sure that everything goes through okay after that. Computer logistics. So if you scan that QR code, that'll pull up our computer requirements. So all students in CEMS are required to have a laptop. You'll be asked to use your laptop during class, and we'll need it for homework, studying, other labs that you're doing. There are specific requirements, and that's broken out by major on that website. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us directly. A big question that we do get is, hey, I'm an engineering major. Is it okay if I have a Mac computer? Our general recommendation is that a Windows computer would be best if you are studying engineering. If you're a computer science, math, stat, data science, even physics student, those students, it's easier to have Windows or Mac. That's essentially just your preference at that point. Engineering students, however, a lot of the engineering software that you would use only runs on Windows machines. So that being said, if you do have a Mac, there is a workaround. It's a system called Virtual VOTI. VOTI is one of our engineering buildings that we have. So it's essentially a virtual machine that you would be running the engineering software on. But our recommendation is if you are looking to buy a computer to go to college and you are an engineering student, buying a Windows computer would be the easiest experience for you. That way you don't have to deal with another system just to run all of that engineering software that you would need to run. Again, as always, any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we can chat about that some more. Okay, so registration. So you'll work closely with an advisor to help finalize your course schedule. As I said, we pre-register you for some of those classes. You do still have some choice, right? So you might be placed into a general education class. You have the opportunity to switch that class if you'd like, or if you were really interested in pursuing a music minor, we can add a music class to your first semester if you'd like to do that. So it's not like you are locked in, you have zero choice on what classes you're taking. It's just for ease, we place you into the bulk of the schedule that you would need, and then we'll make some minor adjustments as needed for individual students. And that could even look like, let's say you have Calc 1 at 10 a.m. and you wanted to take it at noon instead. We can work with you to see what courses are available, to see if you wanted to switch around the timing of your schedule, as well as if you wanted to switch around any of the courses that you were taking. So this will happen during your advising meetings that you have with our office over the next few weeks. So you all should have received an email from one of the advisors in our office inviting you to schedule an advising appointment. So if you've already scheduled an appointment, great. If you have not, once we get off of this call, I would encourage you to log into your UVM email and sign up for that advising appointment as soon as possible. That way we can just make sure that you've got an appointment on the books. So the day of your advising appointment, that will be your day to make adjustments to your schedule. So there's a thing that's going to be placed on your account called a registration hold that would prevent you from adjusting your schedule independently. But on your registration day where you have your advising appointment, we remove that hold. That way you're free to make any adjustments that you would like. But then at midnight, the hold goes back onto your account. And the reason they do that is to make sure that every student has a fair chance throughout the advising process. So they actually release a set number of seats in the classes each day to make sure that every student has an equal chance to get into classes. Whereas if they just released all of the seats up front, the students who have the first advising appointment are going to have a severe advantage over the students that have the last advising appointment. So that day that you have your advising appointment, that is your registration day to make changes. With that being said, the advising holds all expire on Monday, July 7th. So after July 7th, it's a free-for-all. You can make any adjustments to your schedule that you would like at that point. It's just until we get through all of these advising appointments, that hold will be in effect and you will only be able to make adjustments to your schedule on that day until July 7th. We're there throughout the summer. If you have any other questions that come up about your degree or AP or transfer credits, we're here as well. So you don't need to wait until your advising appointment. If you have a burning question, you can email anyone from our office and we can help you. So next steps. It's a good reminder. It's going to be important for you to get into the habit of checking your UVM email frequently. This is the main way that the university is going to communicate with you. So our office, all offices across campus, the main way that people are going to get in touch with you is that UVM email. So I would encourage you throughout the summer, during the summer, you don't need to check it like all of the time, but check it periodically throughout the summer to make sure that you're there's no announcements or anything that you're missing. But then once you're on campus and during the semester, you'll want to get into the habit of checking that multiple times a day. Class announcements, other notifications, as I said, everything is going to go through your UVM email. So get in a good habit of checking that regularly. Make sure you're registered for an advising appointment to learn more about your fall schedule and to meet some of your peers in CEMS. So those advising appointments, we do those in a group style. So you get the chance to meet some other students that are going to be starting in the fall as well. We do have the opportunity in there to break out one-on-one to answer any specific questions that you have, or if you had a question that you wanted to ask your advisor in private, that way you don't need to say it in front of the whole group. That is available to you as well. And I'll also say that we encourage that those meetings are meant to be between an advisor and the student. So we try and hold to that pretty firmly because we think starting to build that autonomy and advocacy within our students early on is really a good practice. So those are meant to just be between advisor and student. And then to make sure that you've taken or retaken the math placement assessment at least one day before your advising appointment, because it's an overnight process for that score to roll into the system. So as I said, do that as soon as possible, but at least one day before your advising appointment, and know that if you need to take it multiple times throughout the summer, you have that option as well. Here's our Instagram and our general contact information that you can reach out to if you have any other questions. But at this point, I know Emma has been watching the chat. I haven't been able to take a look at it to see, but I'm sure you all have been asking questions in there. But at this point, if you have any other questions, this is our Q&A portion. So please feel free to just send those in the chat and I can answer them as they come in. And if you don't have any questions, you are also free to go. So feel free to stick around, type questions, and then if you feel like you're all set, as I said, just make sure that you've scheduled an advising appointment and that you take the math placement assessment. Great question. What is the process like to switch majors? So as I said, within our college, if you want to switch your major at any point, you can just fill out, it's a quick form, and realistically, you can switch it at any point. We have some requirements that we check, but functionally, you can just switch your major to anything within our college. So you literally just fill out the form online. Always a good practice to come in and chat with an advisor before you switch your major. But that's essentially the whole process of it is fill out the form online, we'll approve the request to change your major, and then you'd want to have a follow-up conversation with us to make sure that you're taking the right classes and that you're still making good academic progress. That's within our college. If you are interested in switching to a major in a different college within UVM, there's a process for that that's called the internal transfer process, essentially. So each college has some requirements that they look for if students are looking to transfer into their college. So like for us, we would take a look to make sure that a student has a minimum 2.0 GPA, that you have a minimum 2.0 GPA in any STEM coursework that you've taken, and that you've taken Calc 1 with a C or higher and a lab science course with a C or higher. So as long as you would meet those requirements, you would be eligible to transfer into our college. Each college at UVM has slightly different requirements, and they also review them at slightly different times. But then again, if that comes up and you are interested in switching to a different college at UVM, you can come in and have a conversation with us, as well as have a conversation with the college that you'd be looking to transfer into within UVM. So I see a question about how many extra courses do you need to take in order to get a minor? Off the top of my head, I believe most minors are around 15 credits. So a typical class at UVM is around 3 credits. A lab course generally is a 4 credit class. So 3 credits, general minor is 15 credits. So that's typically around 5 or so classes to complete a minor. Also see a question about co-majoring in a language. So co-majoring is it's a fairly new process. And I believe, Emma, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, I believe for most of our students, it's not, let me just pull up the information here.
I just sent a link. I know that I might need to look in more about the co-major specifically, but if you were looking to like take language classes or minor, I just sent a link. For French or Spanish, you would start with the placement test. And if it's a different language, then you would start, depending on if you have credit for another class, that would kind of help determine what level you would start in for that language.
You, Emma? And then I see a question saying, I'm not sure if my Windows is powerful. Is there some objective parameters to how powerful a computer should be? Yes, on that laptop requirements link that we put up, that you can also Google it. I think Emma sent it in the chat too. It'll show like what kind of RAM you would need and how much memory and what graphics card is necessary. So as long as you meet those requirements on that, you would be good to go. If you have more specific like tech type questions on computer requirements, the UVM tech team, our computer people, would be great to get into more of the specifics about that. But generally, if you meet the requirements listed on the website, you should be good to go. And then if you have more specific questions, the UVM tech team can help you with that. Then I see, do you recommend taking the Writing Will 1 requirement during the first semester? I would say most students do. Most students do. I would say the majority of them definitely do it in their first year. Some students do it in their second year, but it's generally a course that most students have completed after their first year. Because early on in your time, like our college, our engineering programs, and all of our other programs within our college, they're fairly, as I said, rigidly defined, but there's also a prerequisite kind of snowball effect. So in your first couple semesters, you don't meet a lot of the prereqs for a lot of the engineering classes because you're still taking those foundational courses such as Calc 1 and 2, chemistry, physics. Those courses are the big prerequisites that you would need to proceed with the rest of your courses that you would need to do. So it's fairly easy to fit in a decent amount of those general education courses throughout that first year. Whereas once you get to that second year, that's where our curriculums really start to dive in because you've taken all of the foundational courses that you would need for your major. So at that point, you're in a more STEM heavy workload throughout the rest of your time here. That starts to dwindle as you start to get closer to the end of your degree. Requirements generally lessen for the most part, but that years 2 and 3 generally tend to be fairly STEM focused. Involving computer requirement, if you have a laptop to spec and desktop available to use, such as left in a dorm, or would there be any complication involving school, doc, or UVM apps being restricted to one device? I don't believe that they would be restricted to one device. I know I have worked with students in the past that have like a desktop in their dorm room. I think generally our recommendation is it's good to have a laptop that is powerful enough that you can bring around to your classes, because in some of your labs, you might be using that engineering software and it might be necessary that you have that in that lab space. But I don't believe there should be any issues with having it just be restricted on one device. You should be able to access it on multiple devices. When is a good time to apply for an on-campus job? Realistically, at any point, you can get involved with working on campus. Some students do that right away in their first semester. Other students might want to wait through their first semester to get through some of that adjustment period, and then like, okay, now since I've started to get the hang of being in college level classes, now I'll implement a job into that. So personal preference depends on the individual student, the individual situation. So up to you on when you want to start looking for an on-campus job. Their campus places are always hiring for students. Like our office, we have student workers that sit at our front desk and help welcome students into our office. So if you're interested in working with us, generally we're hiring student workers. The dining halls are hiring, the library is hiring. So generally there's a lot of opportunities on campus. So whenever you're ready and you feel like you wanted to start looking for an on-campus job, you could do so. Be you required to take a humanities each semester, even if you have transferable classes to cover them? You are not required to. So there is a program that all students are required to complete called the Catamount Core Curriculum that outlines the general education program for the university. So that looks like 6 credits of arts and humanities, 6 credits in social science, 6 credits in diversity, and a few other categories that you need to satisfy. So once you satisfy those requirements, you do not need to take any more courses in those categories. Totally can if you want to. You're just required to fulfill the Catamount Core curriculum. And then once it's satisfied, you don't need to take any additional courses on that. What does online CEMS seminar look like? If you're referencing the CEMS first year seminar, I'm not sure if that's what you're referencing. That is an in-person class that you would take. If you have a more specific seminar that I'm not referencing the right one, please feel free to respond in the chat and I can hopefully answer that in a little bit more detail. Just curious, would a forestry major fall under CEMS? It would not. Off the top of my head, I believe that would be through the Rubenstein School for the Environment. Emma just sent the link in the chat, and yes, that is through the Rubenstein School. And again, as I said, that is totally perfect to have a minor within a different college. And we see a bunch of students do that as well. My schedule, it has an in-person and virtual CEMS first year seminar.
I think for some reason right now, the lecture portion is listed as online and the labs are in person.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I just pulled it up on the schedule and it does say that it is online.
Essentially, there's a meeting time that all students will go to, which it looks like this semester is online, and then your labs are in smaller groups and those are in person.
Well, Emma and I will be hanging out. If you have any other questions, keep typing them away in the chat. If not, as I said, you're free to go. So